the Horror Guys. One more time. Episode 237.
237, yeah. The Horror Guys. I'm Kevin.
I'm Brian.
We're going to talk about 5 horror movies this week.
Why, isn't going to be the musical episode?
No, it's not.
Not this time?
And it's not light and funny, these movies we saw. They're all
serial killers.
Yeah. Not like literally real people. Some are fictionalized and some are fiction, but they are all just ordinary folks doing bad things.
Some of these are real people.
Yeah,
some of these are just made up people.
But there's no aliens or ghosts or, devilry or anything. This is just bad people doing bad things, which is kind of horrifying.
Real monsters.
Yeah.
Well, what do we got?
Well, we got the 1986 film Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, which was based on a real guy.
I remember when that came out, everybody said how extreme and horrifying it was.
Yeah.
I think it may be the tamest movie we saw this week.
It was pretty tame, yeah. And then we got 1995's Se7en. And then we watch a fictionalized version of the real-life killer Zodiac. That was a long case that went on and is still unsolved to this day. Sorta, kinda. And then we go insane with The Collector and I Saw the Devil, a Korean film.
Crazy stuff.
Yeah, crazy, man.
Okay, those are the ones we're going to talk about here today. If you're over on our newsletter, horrorbulletin.com, we talk about all of those, plus a very interesting little documentary called Hollywood in the Atomic Age, Monsters, Martians, and Mad Scientists.
That was a fun little documentary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It had Martians, it had monsters, and it had mad scientists.
And a lot of interviews with actual folks from the old days that did some of this stuff and worked with various people.
Well, it was 1950, so they were either child actors or they're relatives of the dead people.
And some of the interviews were a while ago, too.
Yeah. But yeah, we started out with the Universal monsters in the 20s and the 30s, and then as the 50s went on, it got much more atomic and sci-fi and Cold War flavored horror.
Atomic was scary. Still is.
We've gotten over it.
Yeah, not like it was.
Speaking of scary, what's up first?
Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer from 1986, which was directed by John McNaughton, written by Richard Fire and John McNaughton, stars a young Michael Rooker, and Tracy Arnold and Tom Towles. Runtime's an hour and 23 minutes. There's a trailer in the show notes.
Spoiler free, what happens?
It's based on a real guy, and it feels like we spend the time just watching him do what he does. It has the feel of a documentary more than a story, but it was interesting getting a glimpse of what such a prolific killer might have been like.
I mean, it is a story. It's stuff happens.
Yeah.
But the way it's filmed, it just seems very realistic. Like we're just
following
almost like
him
a
along.
He show.
Yeah, almost.
This is the killer. Here's what he does.
Yeah, and this guy, whacked. He's killed. What was it? 11 people that they confirmed and found him guilty of.
Yeah,
but he confessed to like dozens 600. And dozens and 600.
The numbers here at the end, I think.
Yeah. So they don't exactly know actually how many people he killed, and he varied his styles, which we mentioned, too, that he talks about, how not to get caught, don't be consistent, don't always, don't stab them, don't shoot them, don't. So, yeah, how many people did he really kill? We don't know.
Lots.
Yeah, lots.
Well, we open on a dead body, naked and dumped in the weeds. We cut to Henry, who just finished his breakfast at the diner. We get glimpses, possibly a flashback, of a store robbery and dead shopkeepers. We cut to a woman tied up in a bathroom with a glass bottle stuck through her face. We then cut to a dead woman floating face down in a pond. And later on we read that all these scenes right here in the beginning were reconstructions of real cases. This is kind of what they really found.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's all kind of real at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Henry then parks at the mall and scopes out people in his mirror. He picks one and starts following her. When he sees that the woman has a husband at home, he moves on. He then picks up a hitchhiker, and it ends poorly for that guy.
Yeah, and he didn't really differentiate men or women.
Yeah, it's all about the killing.
Yeah.
Well, Otis picks up his sister Becky at the airport, and he says she looks terrible. Her husband has left her. She wants to get a job, make some money, and maybe bring her baby to town. Henry comes in and gives Otis a guitar. We saw that guitar with the hitchhiker earlier.
Regifting.
Henry works as an exterminator, and he uses the sprayer to gain access into women's houses. Would you like a free sample? Psst, psst.
Yeah.
We soon see a woman let him in, and she ends up strangled off screen. Well, Becky asks Otis where he met Henry. It was in Vandalia Prison. He killed his mama with a baseball bat. She later talks to Henry about his family, and she admits that she was abused growing up. She asks Henry about killing his mother, and yeah, he admits it. She was a whore, and sometimes she'd make him wear a dress. Well, he tells the story, but some of the details are inconsistent, so he's probably lying about it.
Yeah, something's not the truth there. He forgot he forgot the story. He's not
Too
being consistent.
many stories.
Yeah.
Otis tries to take advantage of his sister, but Henry stops him. The two men then go out for some fun and pick up a pair of hookers. Henry kills them both, and does Otis ever look surprised?
Yeah.
What have you done?
Yeah, gone a little too far there.
Henry says nothing's going to happen when they find the bodies, but Otis is clearly upset. You telling me you never killed anybody before? And Otis says, no,
Otis
he
had
never
not.
has.
Yeah.
Otis later on kicks out the TV screen in anger, so the two decide to go shopping. They go and see a fence for a new TV. The fence gives them a hard time, so they kill him and take what they want. A color TV and a camcorder.
Yeah, and I saw that coming. I mean, the fence is trying to, give him a hard time, and I was thinking, they're just going to kill him and take everything they want.
Well, the fences are used to dealing with like low-level thieves and stuff, not necessarily serial killers.
Yeah, well, but we knew what these.
Well, yeah,
guys
we
were
knew
like.
where it was going.
Yeah.
Otis and Henry go out again, and this time Henry gives Otis a gun. They flag down a random passing driver, and Otis kills him. Henry asks, "Feel better?" Henry narrates the life of a serial killer as Otis records on the camcorder. He explains the rules about not getting caught. They break into a family home and kill the husband, wife, and son as they record the whole thing. Otis then gets frisky with the dead woman, but Henry gets angry and makes him stop. You can't do that to a dead woman.
And this was the mid-'80s, so this whole camera taping thing was a real novelty.
Yeah, it was new.
Yeah.
Otis accidentally breaks the camera and throws it out the car window. And I'm figuring, that tape in there is probably still good.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. There's
some
some evidence
evidence
out the
there.
window. Yeah, if anybody looked at it.
But that goes nowhere.
Yeah.
Becky thinks it's time to go back home to her daughter, and Henry isn't happy to hear it. She invites him to go along, and he says he'll think about it. She takes her shirt off, and Henry doesn't quite know what to do, but then Otis interrupts. Henry goes out for a walk, and when he returns, he finds Otis raping Becky.
And that goes poorly.
Incest is best, brother and sister.
Mm.
Henry comes in, and Becky stabs Otis in the eye. Henry then finishes him off. He then cuts up Otis into little pieces and puts him in the luggage. The luggage soon finds its way into the river. Henry and Becky drive away. They stop at a motel, and in the morning, Henry drives away.
Only Henry.
He drops off Becky's bloody luggage on the side of the road. What do you think happened to Becky?
Yeah, I think we can guess.
Well, it's a fictionalized biography of a real-life serial killer. The 4 early shots of crime scenes were based on 4 of Henry Lee Lucas's real-life murders. He was convicted of 11 murders, but claimed to have done more than 600. I mean, I don't know what city he was in, but you'd think somebody'd notice.
And he died in 2001 at the age of 64, the real-life guy.
In prison, I assume.
In prison,
Yeah.
yes. Uh-huh.
Well, it's surprisingly non-violent compared to a lot more standard horror films. It's also missing a lot of the usual horror tropes, which is what caused a lot of controversy when it was released. It's more like a documentary than a horror film. There's very little blood or gore. Yes, lots of people die, but they're usually very clean deaths. There are no police shown at any point in the film, and there aren't any really good guys in the movie. Kind of feels like we're just watching Henry do what he does, and he doesn't get caught in the end. Overall, I did like it.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, well done.
And maybe we'll have another serial killer movie, huh? How about Se7en from 1995? Directed by David Fincher, written by Andrew Kevin Walker, stars Morgan Freeman, Brad Pitt, Gwyneth Paltrow, and are we allowed to say that?
We are.
And Kevin Spacey.
Yeah.
2 hours and 7 minutes, trailer in the show notes. Spoiler free, this is a very dark and atmospheric throughout. The casting is perfect. The script is amazing. It's creepy, unsettling, and chilling. It's a damn fine film that you should see if you haven't already.
That's right. This was my third viewing, and I've liked it better every time I've seen it.
This is only my second view. I saw it when it came out.
I saw it when it came out, and again sometime later on a rental. And then
Do you think this was
this time-
intentionally a horror movie, or is it just that dark of a cop movie?
Yes. It certainly crosses over into horror.
Well, what happens?
Detective Somerset puts on his tie and gets ready for work. He gets called to a murder investigation where Detective Taylor is kind of a jerk. Detective Mills reports to Somerset. He's new in town. Mills fought to get transferred here, and Somerset can't imagine why.
Why would you want to work here?
Yeah. And Somerset is Morgan Freeman, and Mills is Brad Pitt, who will shadow Somerset for the next 7 days until Somerset's retirement. And then credits roll. Monday. It's divided into 7 days.
Huh.
Yeah. The pair gets a call to a crime scene. The officer responding says the crime scene is a mess, and they find a hugely obese man face down in food. They immediately assume it was a coronary, but they find the man's arms and legs are tied. Someone force-fed him.
Oops.
Yeah, murder. The medical examiner says the man has been dead for quite a while. The man basically ate until he burst, though a kick in the stomach helped speed things along. So someone definitely did this to him. Somerset thinks the process has some kind of meaning. And they find like a receipt for foods where the guy, whoever did this, came and went, made multiple trips for more food. So, he was really committed to this. Well, Somerset thinks murder should be a lot less complicated than this. He predicts that this is just the start. And he's right.
Yeah, this wasn't just somebody angry with the fat man. There was something going on here.
Yeah. And Tuesday, Mills is reassigned, and this is another murder case. A defense attorney has been found murdered, and the word greed is found in blood on the floor. The chief tells Somerset about it. He doesn't believe Somerset will really retire, being a cop is in his blood. And he also gives Somerset some bits of plastic that were removed from the fat man's stomach. The plastic prompts Somerset to move the refrigerator in the guy's apartment. Gluttony is written back there in Greece. There are 7 deadly sins, and now we've got 2 of them. 5 more are coming. Somerset goes to the library to research the case. Mills reads the case files. There's a research montage.
Ooh.
Yeah. Mills reads the Cliff Notes versions of Somerset's research.
He gives him a list of like 8 or 9 big, thick, classic books.
Yeah. And Mills gets the Cliff Notes.
It works.
It works, yeah. Tracy, Mills' wife, asks Somerset over for dinner. And they have a nice apartment, which is right next to the subway, which everyone finds hilarious.
Every 15 minutes, things fall off the walls.
The greed man's wife looks at the crime photos and points out that one of the paintings is upside down. Behind the painting, they find fingerprints. The fingerprints don't match anyone, but they spell out, "Help me." And the greed guy, too, it's noted, too, the killer restrained him and made him cut off a pound of flesh.
Yes.
Had a scale, and and of course he bled out.
How very Shakespearean.
Bled out from doing that. So Thursday, the fingerprints come back, and it's a man named Victor who has a long criminal history. The greed man was Victor's lawyer. Aha! They have a case. All the cops, it seems like, arrives at Victor's home. The whole place has 1,000 hanging air fresheners and 1 man in a bed. They uncover him. Victor is a mummy, and sloth is written on the wall. And there are a series of photographs beginning 1 year ago today, and each following photograph is him starving a little more. And they think he's dead. He's not. He starts moving. Gives one cop a really good jump scare, which means he's not dead. The doctor says the man chewed his own tongue off long ago, and his brain has turned to mush.
So the killer's been doing this for at least a year.
A year he's planned ahead for this.
Well, this is getting detailed.
And Victor's not going to be given any eyewitness testimony about the guy or
No.
anything. Yeah. Well, we're up to Friday. Tracy calls Somerset and wants to meet him to talk. She's not happy about relocating to the big city. She's pregnant, hates the city, doesn't know what to do, doesn't know anybody. He gives her some advice. Somerset talks to an FBI friend who tips him off to a man who checked out all the wrong books.
They've got a list of people who check out the books at the library.
Uh-huh.
So there are library cops.
Yep. Someone shoots at them and runs off when they go to the guy's apartment. Mills pursues the guy, firing several shots, but he gets away. Inside the man's apartment, they find all kinds of weird religious stuff and souvenirs from the previous crimes. There are no fingerprints anywhere in the place. The killer calls, says he'll be adjusting his timetable because of all this. Well, Saturday, they follow up on a receipt from Wild Bill's leather shop. He made something for John Doe, and it was a very special piece. And then they get called to another murder. Lust is on the wall. It's a brothel, and there's a hysterical man there. He says that someone put a gun to his head and made him kill the prostitute by having sex with her with the strap-on knife that was the custom job. Well, the two cops talk about mental illness and how real people are. Somerset laughs at Mills' idealism. Mills refused to give up his idealistic ways, and he shames Somerset a little bit. Sunday, the killer calls and turns in the case himself. Pride this time. And they go there. A model had her face cut up and her nose cut off, but she decided suicide rather than live like that. Yeah, the guy, he cut her face up and glued a phone in one hand and a bottle of pills in the other hand, and she had the choice, and she took the pills. Well, guess who shows up at the police station?
The killer.
John Doe. Turns himself in. And he has been cutting the tips of his fingers off so he doesn't have fingerprints. And they can't find a trace of who he is. They don't know. He literally is John Doe. Well, Mills and Somerset don't see why Doe would turn himself in. They both know he's not done. There's 2 more murders, Wrath and Envy, still waiting. Doe's lawyer offers up 2 more bodies if they give him a deal. And only to the 2 detectives. If they don't agree to the deal, he says Doe will plead insanity and probably get off. So Mills and Somerset accept Doe's deal and reveal the last 2 victims personally. He's going to tell them.
He's going to show them.
Yeah, he's going to literally show them. He says, let's go out. So the 2 cops get wired for sound and escort John Doe to the unknown location of the final 2 bodies. He's just going to give them directions sitting in the backseat of the police car. Well, John Doe talks of it as if his entire plan is a masterpiece of art. I turn the sin against the sinner. He makes quite a speech about how awful the world really is. He says all of them will be remembered for a long time for this,
especially if they make a movie.
Yeah, they make a movie, yeah. This is not an actual documentary, no. Well, they stop the car out in the desert beneath a bunch of high-voltage wires. The wires are in the way, so the helicopter following overhead cannot land. John Doe really planned this out well.
Yes.
Yeah. As they walk away from the car in the desert, a delivery truck approaches, and Somerset heads over there in the car to intercept it. He gets the driver out, and this guy just was told to deliver a package to Mills. What? Well, meanwhile, Doe talks to Mills about the life he's made for himself, and he should be proud. I wish I could have lived like you with your pretty wife Tracy. He knows all about Mills and Tracy. And the helicopter people want to call the bomb squad about the package, but Somerset decides to open the box first. What's in the box?
What would have happened if they'd have waited for the bomb squad?
Yeah, well...
They don't.
John Doe anticipated that Somerset, he knew these cops, anticipated that Somerset wouldn't wait. Yeah. Well, Doe admits that he went to Mills' apartment and played with Tracy. And then he took her head. That's what's in the box. Because he envied Mills. And so his sin is envy. So Somerset returns to the duo, demands Mills' gun. Mills hasn't quite figured this out yet. But then he does. Doe tells him everything. And that's what Doe says he must die for. and become wrath, David, says Mills. No, says that's a
John Doe
typo.
says that.
Yes, yeah. I'm just reading and realizing, no, that's not right. Yeah. John Doe wants him to become wrath. David, if you kill him, you will win, says Somerset. But he's so outraged.
He's a wrath.
Yeah, he becomes wrath and kills him. Kills John Doe repeatedly.
So there's your final two.
And there's your final two. Yeah. He coerced Mills into being the killer on Wrath. Yeah.
Well, it rains a lot.
It's not a happy movie.
No, it's not. It rains in every scene, except for the very end of the desert. Mm-hmm. How does it rain so much in a city that's like within 5 minutes from a desert? Well, the whole thing is very slow moving, but the creepy factor builds and builds throughout. It's very atmospheric. All the acting is just perfect. The two main characters, Somerset and Mills, are very clearly defined and very unique characters. It's a very character-driven story, even though the plot is really strong.
Yeah, it's excellent.
The ending is super creative, and everything plays right into John Doe's plan. It's perfect.
Yeah, yep, I thought so. And then in 2008, they made a movie about Zodiac.
Oh, I'm a Capricorn.
Oh, I'm a Sagittarius. Not that kind of Zodiac, though.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, this is that other Zodiac.
Directed by David Fincher. Written by James Vanderbilt and Robert Graysmith. Stars Jake Gyllenhaal, Robert Downey Jr., Mark Ruffalo, Anthony Edwards.
And a whole bunch of other familiar faces.
Yeah, they got a big cast in this and a long run time at 2 hours and 37 minutes. There's a trailer in the show notes. And, spoiler free, well, the horror from this comes from it being spun from real murders. And it is more of a mystery and a crime drama. Kind of low on the horror, but it simmers throughout it. The movie is long, and the real investigation was much longer, but they kept it interesting throughout. There's a large cast of talented folks, and it was very well directed.
Well, this was super well publicized while it was going on, and it scared a whole lot of people.
Yeah,
so it's kind of a real-life horror movie.
Yes.
I mean, there's no supernatural or anything like that, but...
Because the guy was out there,
it's real.
They didn't know who he was, and he kept killing.
Yeah. Well, we start off on July 4th, 1969 in the suburbs. A young couple goes to the burger place, but it's too crowded. Instead, they go parking. A creepy black car stops behind them and soon drives off. When he comes back, the two kids think they're going to be robbed. Instead, they're both shot full of holes. We don't see who did it. The killer then calls the police and reports the crime himself, as credits roll. 4 weeks later, Robert Graysmith takes his son to school. He's a cartoonist for the Chronicle, and his editor calls his work mostly horrid at the editorial meeting. Then the editor gets a letter from the murderer. The letter writer knows things the police hadn't published, and he's also included a cipher, a big sheet of code, that he wants to be printed in the paper ASAP. Well, Paul Avery is the crime reporter, and he starts verifying the letter. It's all true, so they decide to print the cipher on page 4. Within a few hours, the FBI, CIA, and everyone else is working on decoding that code. Within a few days, someone decodes the message. The man sounds like a lunatic. Then another letter appears, and this time he calls himself the Zodiac. Well, 6 weeks later, another couple's out near the lake, and the Zodiac appears. He's wearing black and has a crosshair symbol on his chest. He makes the girl tie up the man, and then Zodiac ties her up as well. This time, he stabs them both. The man, though, survives and describes the killer, and Robert draws him. A few weeks later, someone shoots a cabbie. Inspector Tosh is called to investigate the botched robbery. The Zodiac soon sends a letter claiming the crime. Paul and Robert talk about the crime at the newspaper, and the killer continues to send letters. He wants to call into a TV show to publicly talk to Melvin Belli, a famous attorney. He wants to live talk to this guy on TV. Well, the Zodiac calls in and says to call him Sam. Well, the man definitely sounds like he has mental issues. It turns out to be a guy calling from a mental institution.
Well, case solved. Well, not quite.
Well, Robert does some research and tells Paul what he learned. The code is called the Zodiac alphabet. It's a real thing, and it's really old. A few more months pass, and Belli gets a letter from the Zodiac again.
Yeah, this was a slow-moving case over
30 years
many
or something.
years.
Yes.
Yeah.
Several months after that, the Zodiac picks up a woman and baby alongside the road. Before I kill you, I'm going to throw your baby out the window. But she jumps out of the car window with the baby, and they both survive. More murders happen over a period of time.
And further complicating the case, too, was he would brag about, and they talk about that in the movie here and there, but, he would brag about various killings and things that were reported in the news that he probably didn't do or might not have done.
Yeah, throwing them off.
Yeah.
Paul Avery comes to the conclusion that the Zodiac may not have killed all the people he's claimed to have killed. Maybe he's lied about claiming a few random crimes. That would really get your evidence mixed up, wouldn't it?
It would, yeah.
4 months pass with no more crimes. Paul gets a threatening card to him sent in the mail, and then he goes out to buy a gun. Everybody starts wearing buttons that say, "I am not Avery," including Avery. Don't shoot me, it's not me. Avery finds a murder from way back in 1966 that may be the Zodiac's first. Or maybe not. Who can tell? More and more evidence mounts against a former teacher who can write with either hand. He's supposed to have revealed everything to a friend a few years before all this started. Arthur Lee Allen has a very weak story about his alibi for the first few killings. He does also wear a Zodiac brand watch. The handwriting expert, though, rules him out. Couldn't be him. 1 year later, Paul Avery isn't looking good. He thinks he's a marked man, so now he's an alcoholic. Lee Allen has moved to a different district, so now Tashi thinks he can find a search warrant in the new district. They make a good case, and the judge finally gives them a warrant. Allen's place is a mess and infested with squirrels, some in cages and some not. It's not abandoned. He lives there with these squirrels.
Yeah, like he rehabilitates them.
Well, they find guns and clothing similar to that of the Zodiac, but Allen drives up and they arrest him. But again, his handwriting just doesn't match.
Not enough to keep him.
It's been long enough that movies are being made with ciphers with a killer named Scorpio. Like you may have seen it, Dirty Harry.
A Dirty Harry movie, yeah.
Robert talks to Tashi and says he knows he's going to catch the killer eventually.
Yeah, which is weird because they show these movies in the movie, show these people going to these movies about the case they're working on in the movie.
Yeah. Wait a minute, is that guy supposed to be me?
Yeah.
4 years later, Jennings replaces Avery, who's been fired. Tashi's partner, Armstrong, is put in for a transfer. He visits Paul and suggests that maybe he should write a book about the Zodiac. Paul is rude, so Robert leaves and goes to the library himself. It's now 1977, and Robert goes to see Tashi. It's still an open case, but Tashi is the only one still working the case. The Zodiac hasn't been heard of in 3 years. He travels around and enlists the help of the police who worked on the case. Cue another research montage. He comes up with the theory that the Zodiac knew his first victim. Well, Robert goes to talk to Melvin Belli, and Belli's maid says she talked to the Zodiac on the phone. The Zodiac told her it was his birthday.
Well, there's a clue.
Maybe. Maybe.
Unless he was lying.
An article in the newspaper says that Robert is shopping around his new book, and he gets an anonymous phone call telling him the name of the Zodiac and the name of one of his friends. He also gets a call with heavy breathing, something the Zodiac was known for. It's now 1978, and a new Zodiac letter comes to the Chronicle. This one mentions Tashi by name. The press claims it is a forgery written by Tashi himself, trying to get attention from the case. He is then removed from the homicide department in retaliation. Robert's wife yells at him about his obsession, and she's afraid of the publicity.
Understandably.
Well, Robert meets Bob Vaughn, a friend of the reported killer, Rick Martin. Rick left a sealed film canister with Vaughn, but came back and took it later. The scene suddenly gets very creepy when Robert starts figuring out that he might be in the same room as the killer.
That was a really well done scene.
By the time he gets home, his wife has taken the kids. She demands that he finish this.
Yeah, I think, and that's the thing about real life things that they make into movies, that, the real life is often not as interesting as a movie, but I think that they managed to liven things up and keep it entertaining and interesting throughout this long.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I'm sure they don't show those like the 12 years of boring
it
waiting.
didn't- yeah, they cut it. Well, yeah, they cut out the boring parts, but yeah, it never. I don't think it ever felt like a slog. It was always interesting and kept moving. You know.
I don't know. You asked how much longer is this? 3 or 4 times.
Well, yeah, because it was noticeable. Time passed.
It is long.
But yeah, yeah.
Okay, well, anyway, next, Robert goes to talk to Linda in prison. She was another friend of the first victim. She swears the guy she knew wasn't named Rick. It was Lee.
What?
There's a connection between Lee Allen and the first victim. Allen's birthday turns out to be the same day as when Beli's maid said. Robert tells all this to David Toschi, and they compare notes. 1983. Robert tracks down and talks to Lee Allen. Remember, the first murder was in 66. We're all the way up to 83 now.
69.
69, okay.
Yeah.
Well, now we move up to 1991.
Dang.
And Robert's book Zodiac is now on the shelves. One of the survivors comes in for questioning and is shown a series of photos for identification. He picks out Lee Allen's photo as the killer. Of course, then we're told that after this identification, police went after Arthur Lee Allen, but he had already died of a heart attack before he could be questioned again. Even though Allen was the only real suspect, the case is still technically open.
Technically.
Not the end.
No, not really. No.
Well, there's lots and lots of explanation and exposition, but it's all done very entertainingly with multiple cuts of different conversations between characters. It's really long, but fortunately not as long as the real investigation of 20-some years. To make the film more honest, they didn't recreate any of the murders where there were no survivors. Only the ones where someone lived or where there was witnesses were reproduced.
Fair enough.
So they didn't just make stuff up.
Mm-hmm.
It's got an amazing, huge cast, and everyone here is excellent. You'll recognize almost everyone. Jake Gyllenhaal plays Robert, but he seems creepy enough to play a serial killer himself. Maybe this was sort of a prequel to Nightcrawler.
Maybe.
Which, we've never put that out as a horror movie either, but
We
it certainly
should.
could be.
Yeah, it could be.
It's definitely more of a crime mystery thriller than horror, but there are a few very tense moments and lots of blood and gore. Plus, it's mostly true, so that part's scary. Again, it's super long, but we were entertained throughout. I kind of wonder how much of this is factual and how much is fictionalized.
Yeah,
I assume most of this is pretty fact-based.
Yeah, they
It
always
seemed awfully realistic.
Spice things up for movies, but
There's the bit about his wife leaving and stuff that's probably played up. But
Yeah.
I imagine the real details are all there.
And I think their relationships, some of the characters didn't know each other that well.
Oh, that's
in real
true.
life.
Yeah, you're right. The cartoonist and the crime writer were barely spoke.
Yeah, and here they're best buds practically.
Okay, now for the most realistic film of the week.
Oh God, not
We had heard so much good stuff about how great The Collector was.
The Collector from 2009,
Oh, man.
Oh,
we
we-
both talked about this for days about how dumb it was.
and not in a good way.
No. Directed by Marcus Dunstan, written by Patrick Melton and Marcus Dunstan, stars Josh Stewart, Andrea Roth, and Juan Fernandez. Hour and 30 minutes, trailer in the show notes. Again, this is 2009's The Collector.
Mm-hmm.
There is a sequel called The Collected, I believe. Or The
Okay.
Collection. I don't know. We haven't seen it yet.
We should see it.
Spoiler free. It's bloody and brutal, but too many elements don't make sense when you ponder them too deeply. Or even just lightly think about it.
Uh-huh.
Actually, there's a lot of questions you're going to have right during the movie.
Yeah.
Those elements somewhat take the viewer out of the moment, which lessens the impact of the suffering and the drama. At least it did for us. Yeah, I don't know how many times the word why came up in this.
Yeah, why would that happen?
It's well made and it looks good, but we definitely did not love this one.
Yeah.
All right, what happens?
Well, a couple arrives at their big house after what looks like a night out. Larry tries to turn on the lights, but they don't work. Gina calls him upstairs. There's a strange box in their room. He opens the box and screams as credits roll.
I would like to imagine it's a great big Jack in the Box. Boing!
Boing! Yeah!
Probably more to it than that.
Yeah. Well, we return with Michael and Victoria Chase, who are renovating their new house. Aiken is there. Arkin, doing a lot of the work and notices all the pictures on the wall. The daughter, Hannah, makes him play Tea Party with her. Arkin is there to install the security system, and he seems kind of obsessed with bugs.
Can't tell if he likes
there's a lot of
bugs or if he's
bugs.
terrified of the bugs, but the bugs bug him somehow.
Yeah. Well, he flirts with the other daughter, Jill. Jill and Victoria argue about going on a family vacation. They're all leaving on a trip. Arkin goes to see his ex, Lisa, and daughter, Cindy. Lisa owes money to loan sharks, and he doesn't have enough money for her, but he promises to get the cash. He calls Roy, a criminal acquaintance, and offers him to split half the take if he can get paid tonight. They've done this before. They've got a history, but Arkin wants to rush the job, which doesn't please Roy. Roy likes to schedule and, take their time and everything, and Arkin's like, do it now. Or else, he won't do it.
Arkin needs the money.
And Arkin is an experienced safecracker, and the house that he was at, Michael Chase, is the victim. He's a jewel broker, so they got gems in the safe there.
Do you think a jewel broker takes homework home with him every night?
Not like this, no.
Maybe he works from home. We don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
It just seems odd.
Yeah, well, it could have cash and other valuables, but anyway.
There's definitely a safe.
Yeah. Night falls. Arkin puts on a black ski mask, walks through the woods to the empty house. He picks the lock and lets himself in. He goes straight to the safe and gets to work until someone else comes into the house. Arkin tries to run away, but there are a bunch of locks on the other door. He can't get out. These are not the security locks that he installed.
No, these are new.
Excessive, and they're a weird pick-proof kind of lock too. They're not regular locks like he can handle. So, suddenly Arkin hears screaming from somewhere upstairs, and he finds Michael badly beaten. Michael thinks...
Weren't they supposed to be on vacation?
Yeah, weren't they supposed to be? And yet here's the dad, yeah. Well, Michael thinks Arkin is involved in all this, tries to tell him that he's not, and then Michael sets off some kind of elaborate wire snare trap that drags him through the house and out of sight. Well, Arkin soon runs into a few less than lethal booby traps of his own. There are a ridiculous number of wires and traps all over the place. And as Arkin explores for a way out, we see another man with a mask and a knife following him. That must be the collector. Arkin finds Michael, who tells him Jill left before all this started, but Victoria and Hannah are still in the house somewhere. He does find Victoria, who tells him to get little Hannah out. Arkin has her scream as a diversion so he can get back upstairs. The collector then arrives and threatens to cut her tongue out. Ew. Arkin finds Michael's gun and takes the jewels while he's in the safe. There's no bullets. He also finds a box like the one we saw in the pre-credit sequence. Inside is Larry, also from the pre-credit sequence.
Oh, it's a Larry in the box.
Uh-huh. He collects people, he says. He only kills people that he doesn't want. He only takes one. Oh, my. Well, Arkin pushes him back in the box and moves on. He goes to look for Vicky, but that doesn't end well for her.
Yeah, Larry there, he's all tied up, he's chained
Vicky.
And stuff, so he can't actually get him loose.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's not like he just, left him, but closed up the box again so the collector doesn't know he was there.
Back in the box.
Yeah. Well, he goes back for Vicky, but that doesn't end well for her at all. So Arkin looks out the window and he sees that Jill and her boyfriend have returned. They come in, but they're too wound up with each other to notice anything. And the front door is, accessible. Arkin can't get back to the front door because of the traps. That's why he's been stuck in the house like this. But, Jill and the boyfriend come right in the front door. Well, Chad learns how bear traps work. Ooh. And Jill finds a wall of spikes.
And this is where I tuned out.
Because these traps are so elaborate.
Ridiculous.
So much structural change
the
would have to be
living
done.
room is covered in like 70 bear traps.
Okay, not 70, but just solid bear traps.
For like 10, 12 square feet. I mean, he falls down. No way you could set those up, and it would take hours.
And this complicated spike trap on the wall.
And and all that wiring stuff from before.
Yeah,
and
these
the trip
traps
wires
are just
and the
so
razor blades
complicated.
and the locks under.
The
How
guy,
damn long has
Arkin-
this guy been working on the house?
Arkin was there that day,
Yes.
earlier.
None of that stuff was
None
there.
of that stuff was there. This stuff would have taken days, not just hours.
And he
Assuming
already
that-
had the family tied up anyway. What did he need the traps for?
Exactly. That's the question. Yeah, he's got the family. He didn't know Arkin was going to be coming. He had no way of knowing
Nope,
that.
that was a complete surprise.
So why set all these traps? Why go through all that
He was
trouble?
expecting the daughter to come home. He probably
Impossible
could have.
trouble.
It's just dumb.
Yeah,
Not to mention, if you think on the
sense.
timing of setting up the traps, it's just simply impossible.
Yeah, they're just too complicated and too many of them.
But now, back to our story.
And he would have had to have a big truck to haul all this stuff in.
Bear traps and spike traps take room. Yes.
Yeah. Besides all the other chains and traps and hooks and yeah. Well, Arkin finally breaks a window, gets out of the house. But he looks back and sees that little Hannah is still inside with the collector. So Arkin goes back in, grabs Hannah, they hide in her bedroom. The collector knocks out Arkin, and we get a montage of suffering.
Seems like all serial killer movies have a montage somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Arkin soon finds himself strung up by fish hooks. The collector knocks out one of his teeth, and then he slices Arkin open and pours bugs into the hole.
Where'd he get the bugs?
Yeah.
Did he know he was going to need bugs?
Yeah. Well, the police arrive, a police. Turns out Jill dialed 911 before she died. But the collector and his dog soon deal with him. Meanwhile, Arkin pulls loose from the fish hooks, which looks very,
Ow.
very painful. Yeah. Arkin and the collector have a fight, and it all looks very painful. Eventually, they use one of the traps against the collector and run outside, where Arkin is run over by a police car.
Oh,
Whoops.
oops.
Yeah. As the paramedics load Arkin into the ambulance, the house explodes. And little Hannah got out. Will anyone believe his story? Arkin tells the cops it was the exterminator who was working on the house, so they go check that out. The ambulance gets run off the road. The collector opens the door and kills the paramedic. The collector forces Arkin into one of his boxes and drives off in his exterminator truck. Okay, so he did have a truck. He could have had all the traps, in the back of his exterminator truck, I guess. But boy, the setup that would have been required for, and he already had the family. Why go through all the trouble of all these traps when, you wouldn't have the status, So he's got the family, and wouldn't you be disappointed? You go through all this trouble of setting up all those traps and nobody shows. Nobody comes to the party.
Well, it's
good thing Arkin showed up.
Yeah. It would have been a really boring evening for the collector. He already had the whole family.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of surprising how effective fish hooks can be. Those are very cringy.
Yes.
Do you ever have a fishing hook stuck in your finger?
No.
Neither have I, but I've seen people doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ow.
Yeah.
How many hours would it have taken to set up all those traps? Some of those traps, like the hot glue. Oh, we didn't even mention the hot glue.
Well, I think it was acid glue. But
Oh, that's so much better.
Yeah.
These would have taken a long while to create.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's got the entire floor covered in this hot, steamy, or maybe it's acid glue.
I think it's an acidic, really strong acidic, which dissolves anything.
Like a flypaper with acid.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Well, Arkin didn't arrive at the house until around 10:30 p.m., and the collector already had the family tied up, so why bother with all the traps? Who was he expecting? A weird, frantic... Oh, yeah, the sound of the collector, too.
Mm-hmm.
He makes this weird, frantic, screaming, crying sound that plays whenever the collector's moving around. But he's not making that sound. It's just a movie sound effect.
It was effective.
It's a good sound effect.
Uh-huh.
But could you imagine what this movie would be like if you were deaf? He would not be the least bit creepy.
Less interesting, yeah.
He wouldn't be anywhere near as effective without that sound effect.
Mm-hmm.
There's lots of gore and a very few creative traps. But most of this makes no logical sense whatsoever. Why do any of this?
Mm-hmm. Even if you're crazy, it's not logical.
Yeah, it's just a whole lot of work for nothing.
Yeah.
You want to kill somebody, it's way easier than this.
Mm-hmm.
Especially since he had the two parents already tied up. It was bloody and brutal, but made no sense whatsoever.
Yeah, not the best. Not the best at all.
I get the people who thought it was fun to watch, but man, it is dumb.
Kinda.
All right, now here's one we saw long time ago. We heard that this was really good.
And I was so pleasantly surprised by this.
You're like, it's a karate movie or something, and it's in subtitles.
And we didn't think it'd be very good, and boy, it was good.
I Saw the Devil from 2010, directed by Ji-woon Kim. I'm going to have to read this one, aren't I?
Yes. Yes, you are.
Written
Thank
by
you.
Park Hoon-jung and Jae-woon Kim. Stars Lee Byung-hung, Choi Min-sik, and Jung-gook Hwan. 2 hours and 24 minutes. So this one's long, too.
Confusing names aside, it is subtitled, but boy, yeah, it was worth the watch.
It's very clear who's who in this,
Yeah.
mostly.
Yeah.
What happens spoiler-free?
Well, it's interesting because the movie reaches a kind of resolution much sooner than we expected.
Sorta.
Yeah. And then it keeps going much, much further than that.
Imagine that Zodiac movie if they knew who the killer was 20 minutes in.
Yeah. And then they keep going. Like, wait, what? But you caught him. What more can you do? Well, we find out. It's very well made, gory, violent, surprising, and very entertaining. And, we're emphasizing the spoiler-free judgment there. If you haven't seen it, you shouldn't listen to these spoilers, because I think I enjoyed it even more not knowing anything about it going into it.
It does have some surprises.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not, surprises. I mean, we can say it's got surprises and you'll still be surprised.
Well, we start with someone driving through the snowy countryside as credits roll. The woman inside phones her boyfriend and says that she visited the orphanage today. Children are so cute. Then a man walks up to her car in the snow. She stopped for a flat tire, and the man offers to take a look. Her boyfriend is working some kind of a security job, and it's her birthday, but they all seem nice about it. She tells the man outside that she'll just wait for the tow truck. He goes back to his truck but doesn't leave. He then breaks in through the window and beats her with a hammer. He drags her body off through the bloody snow as the credits continue to roll.
Mm-hmm.
She wakes up later, naked and chained to a pole in a barn.
She's not dead.
He has a wide selection of knives and comments on how soft her skin is. She begs him not to kill her because she's pregnant. He doesn't care. Soon she's a pile of dismembered parts. He drops her ring and leaves it behind after his cleanup.
Yeah, it falls into a drainage grate and he can't really find it. She doesn't try very hard.
A little boy finds a shopping bag with an ear in it, and soon there's a massive search. Squad Chief Jang arrives upset. His daughter is the one who's gone missing. Se7en also arrives. He's the boyfriend we saw earlier. The girl's head is found, and things start getting crazy. The next day, Chief Jang and Se7en need to talk. Jang was a police chief for 30 years before retiring. Ju-yeon, the woman, has a big funeral, and Se7en swears, "I will make him pay for your pain." But he says it in Korean.
He does. Yeah.
He takes a few weeks off work, and Se7en is some kind of secret agent, not just a security guy, and he decides to take care of this himself.
Yeah, so imagine you've killed James Bond's girlfriend.
Yes.
Yeah, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Se7en narrows things down to 4 suspects. Se7en soon tracks down and mutilates one until he confesses to the plea about kidnapping and killing a girl several months ago, but is not Ju-yeon. He does something similar to the second suspect as well. We cut to another woman, alone at a bus stop. The same work truck pulls up next to her, and the killer from before, Jang Kyung-chol, offers her a ride. He whacks her with an old pipe, and this time he uses a guillotine to behead her in his barn. He's got all the best toys.
Mm-hmm.
Se7en talks to Kyung-chol's parents, and they think their son is a deadbeat who abandoned them and his own son. He does get an address for the man, though, so Se7en breaks into the man's house and finds purses, shoes, and bras. Looks like he keeps souvenirs. Then the agent finds that barn with a bloody floor and various torture implements. He also finds his fiancée's engagement ring.
So
That's the guy.
Not very far into the movie, he's solved it already. And,
20 or 30 minutes.
and
tops.
found the guy. Yeah.
Well, we see that Kyung-chol really is a school bus driver who now has a tracking device on his bus. The police come looking for him, but he's out on the road. Kyung-chol takes a girl from the bus to a greenhouse and does his thing with her. Se7en, using the tracker, approaches from outside. Kyung-chol senses that there's someone there, and the two men face each other. They have a brutal knife fight in the greenhouse, which ends with Kyung-chol being beaten unconscious pretty badly. Se7en feeds the killer a GPS tracker capsule that he took for work. It has a microphone in it so he can hear what's going on. He has a tracker.
Just a little capsule.
And he shoves it down his throat. So it's got a couple of good days there.
So he can track the guy.
And he leaves him alone. He just leaves him there.
Yeah, I was not expecting that.
Nope. Kung Chol wakes up sometime later and finds an envelope full of money. Why? Well, he flags down a cab and shares the ride with two passengers, one of whom already has a knife out to rob the cabbie. The following scene between the three men in the cab is epic.
Yeah, that's something.
The serial killer, the robber, and the cabbie.
Mm-hmm.
Kung Chol goes to the doctor to get patched up, and he bullies the doctor and nurse. He's about to rape the nurse when Se7en comes in and beats him up again before slicing his Achilles tendon.
Ow.
He ain't walking away from that.
No, not easily.
Se7en has the nurse bandage up Kung Chol and releases him again. We soon see that not only can Se7en track the killer, but he can hear everything that's going on around him.
He really wants to torment this guy.
Squad Chief Jang calls Se7en and says the police think he's the one pursuing and tormenting Kung Chol. Jang knows what's really up and says maybe it's time to stop. The old man's other daughter, Se7en, wants to know what Se7en is up to. She wants him to stop as well. Whatever you do to punish him won't help anything. Revenge is just for movies.
Good thing this is a movie.
Kung Chol gets picked up by a farmer who eats human flesh himself. This is not our serial killer, this is a different one.
Yeah.
Well, he tells them who he is, and they're okay with that. They work together. They talk about the hunter who is playing with Kung Chol. The farmer is out of fresh meat, so he opens up his cells and pulls out a chained-up woman. She's the actual owner of the farm, and he just finished eating her sister. Se7en interrupts the proceedings until Kung Chol shows up with the shotgun. Things go badly for the cannibals, and Se7en drives off with the unconscious killer in the car. So this is like the third time he's caught the guy.
Mm-hmm. And beats him up a little more every time.
Yeah, he's not looking good at this point.
No.
The next day, the police are on the scene, and they ask the old chief about Se7en. They know who's been doing the revenge crimes, and they want the old man to get him to stop. Se7en's work friend tells him he should give up the killer, but Se7en says he's a long way from finished. He asks how the tracker bug is working, and we know that it's inside Kung Chol, who eventually wakes up, released in an isolated tunnel somewhere. Kung Chol now realizes that Se7en can hear and follow him, and starts taunting him over the radio. Maybe this torment can work both ways.
Maybe.
Kung Chol takes a bunch of laxatives and gets the tracker out. He then force feeds it to a random man that he knocks out. Now Se7en has no idea where the killer is, but soon comes to the conclusion that he'll go after Chief Jang and Se7en. Kung Chol calls the police and says he'll turn himself in later today, but he has something to do first. Chief Jang answers the door, and guess who's there? Well, Kung Chol beats up old Jang pretty severely, and then Se7en comes home. He kills her too.
Yeah, so the agent screwed up there.
Kung Chol calls and sets up a meeting saying he's won. He gets out of the car, covered in blood, and there are about 100 cops watching as he turns himself in. He raises his arms to surrender, but Se7en sweeps in his own car and grabs him first. That might be a little tough to believe there.
It was excessive, but entertaining.
Se7en drives to Kung Chol's original house where the baddie killed Su-young's fiancée. Kung Chol begs for him to just hurry up and kill him already, but Se7en takes his time. I'll kill you at your most painful moment. Kung Chol isn't going to give him the satisfaction of crying or saying he's afraid, so Se7en then leaves him tied up in the guillotine with the blade connected to the doorknob. Sooner or later, someone's going to open that door. Until then, Kung Chol's going to have to wait. And there's also a trigger stuck in a rope that's in his mouth. He's got to hold it with his teeth.
Well, no, what that was it was connected to the doorknob holding the door shut. As long as he kept his grip on that, he could keep the door shut.
Oh, that's what that was. Okay.
Yeah, and so
yeah,
his family arrives.
Kung Chol's family arrives. Se7en called them and gave him the address.
And, she's the family is pulling on the door.
And he's inside and holding with his teeth.
Yeah, and he can't yell because he's got the thing in his teeth. He can't, and, they're trying, the door's stuck. Well, pull it harder, you hear them saying, And, yeah.
Much screaming then ensues.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I wonder if Se7en plans to go back to work on Monday. Everything's going to be
normal?
all normal again.
He's probably so fired.
I don't know. If he's a government secret agent, that could almost be treason or something, maybe.
Yeah, misuse of government funds. And yeah.
It's got torture, gore, excessive murders, and a lot of suspense. It's all beautifully filmed, even at night, and there's never any doubt as to what's going on or who's who. The fight scenes are really well done, and a couple of them are really unique. Some of it may be a little too over the top to be realistic, but it's definitely entertaining and brutal. This may be the most over-the-top, elaborate revenge film of all time. We both liked it a lot.
And I have a hard time saying whether this was my favorite of the week or Seven.
I think Seven is the best movie of the week. I mean, it won Academy Awards, and it's a major classic.
Mm-hmm.
As far as horror movies, I would go with The Devil. I saw The Devil.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's all the movies we're going to talk about this week. Remember, over at horrorbulletin.com, we've got all of those, plus Hollywood in the Atomic Age, Monsters, Martians, and Mad Scientists, a documentary from 2021. It's a well put together movie talking about movie history, stories of the people, how things were made, and so forth. Lots of interviews of actors and relatives, trailer clips, and old photos. It's worth checking out, especially if you're a fan of the older sci-fi and atomic horror from those days.
I thought it was interesting. There was a couple things here and there that I learned that I didn't already know.
I think I did too.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's our show for this week. Stop on over at horrorguys.com for our daily reviews, or sign up at horrorbulletin.com for our free weekly newsletter where you get 6 or 7 reviews every week. Horror Guys Shop. Yeah, that's kind of the important one there with all the books. Check out our books.
There's lots to choose
Buy
from.
20 or 30 of them.
Yeah, for all your friends.
We've got, I don't remember, 6 or 8 Horror Guys Guides books, things like Vincent Price, Roger Corman, Peter Cushing, Universal Films, Hammer Films.
And some short stories, fiction short story collections.
Tales to Make You Shiver. Yes, and Tales to Make You Shiver Volume 2.
And someday there will be a Volume 3.
You keep saying that.
I've got it half written.
And, of course, every month we compile all our reviews into Horror Bulletin Monthly, and we're up to issue 23 coming up real soon now, probably next week.
Cool.
And until next week, I'm Brian.
And I'm Kevin.
Who are we going to be next week?
Who are we going to be? We're going to be
Until next week, I'm Brian.
I'll be Brian next week.
Oh,
and
that's
you can
cool.
be Kevin.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah. Okay.
Got to switch headphones.
Yeah.
Wow.
See
Okay,
ya.
see ya.